Hello everyone, my name is Mrs. Mariam Farid. Today I'll cover the vocabulary of Module 3 with you for third prep. Our module's name is Human Nature. Let's open our books on page 32. Before reading the text, I'd like to ask you some questions, and I want you to think about the answers of these questions while we are reading. Do you know any stories of people who grew up in the wild? Have you read The Jungle Book? Did you like it? Why and why not? For today, we are going to read an extract from an adapted version of the novel The Jungle Book. I mean by an extract, it's a part of this novel. We are going to read this part. It's not a summary, it's only a part from the middle of this novel. Let's read together and read about a character which grew up in the wild. We are going to talk about Mowgli. Mowgli left the wolf's cave where he had grown up. We can understand from the first sentence that he grew up in the wild and among the wolves, and went out of the jungle and into the fields and plowed lands, digged ones, preparing lands for farming, where the villagers lived. Now it's his first time to try to find himself among some people, not animals. All over the plain, cattle and buffaloes were grazing, not gazing. Grazing, I mean eating, for animals here. Mowgli was walking towards the village when he came across little boys in charge of the herds, group of animals. They shouted in alarm when they saw him and ran away towards the village. Mowgli was as hungry as a wolf, very hungry. So he ignored them and walked on, completed his way. When he came to the village gate, the great door of the village, he saw the heavy branches that the villagers put before the gate at night, pushed to one side. So men are afraid of the people of the jungle here also. He was talking to himself because he noticed that they put some branches of trees in front of the gate of the village. He began to understand that they were very afraid of the animals. He thought. He sat down by the gate, and when a man came out, he pointed at his mouth. Of course, don't forget that he grew up in the wild, that's why he couldn't speak. That's why he began to use his hands to point at his mouth to show them that he was hungry, to show that he wanted food. The man stared at him, looked carefully, then ran back up the street of the village, shouting. When he came back, he brought with him at least 100 people, a lot of people from the village, to look at this child, who talked and shouted and pointed at Mowgli. They have no manners, these menfolk, thought Mowgli, wondering what had come over them. Only the grey ape would behave as they do. He frowned at the crowd in front of him. He became so annoyed that all these people pointing at him, and he began to talk about manners as if animals taught him what manners are. Look at the marks on his arms and legs. They are the bites of wolves, remarked the man. Noticed one of them and said this loudly. To be bitten by wolves, poor child, cried a woman. Of course, when playing together, now we are reading what Mowgli was thinking about. Of course, when playing together, the cubs would often bite harder than they intended, and there were white scars all over his arms and legs. By scars here, permanent marks that you can say were left after an accident or something like this among the animals. But he would never have called them bites, for he knew what real biting meant. Meswa, he is not unlike your boy that was taken by the tiger so many years ago, said a woman. Meswa stepped out of the crowd and inspected Mowgli's face. Yes, we can understand now that a woman in the past lost her child who was taken by a tiger into the forest, and now people began to tell her, look carefully at this boy, you could discover that he is your son. She nodded her head, and by nodded to move your head up and down many times as a sign of agreement. She nodded her head and said, indeed, they are very alike, although he is thinner. What the jungle has taken, the jungle has restored, said a villager. He wanted to tell her, be happy because your child now came again from the forest. Miswa happily took Mowgli to her hut and gave him some bread and milk to drink. She wanted to see if he really was her son. She said, Nathu, Nathu, but Mowgli didn't show that he knew the name. Of course, it was her son's name, and she wanted Mowgli to respond to this name, but of course he couldn't remember this. Finally, she remembered how her son used to run around in his new shoes. She touched his foot, seeing that the skin was as hard as stone, because of course in the jungle he didn't wear any shoes. She shook her head. No, she said sorrowfully, those feet have never worn shoes. Still, you are very like my son. Mowgli was uneasy. You can say that he wasn't feeling comfortable at this hut because he used to live in the wild with no roofs above his head. Because he had never been under a roof before. But as he looked at it, he saw that he could tear it out any time if he wanted to get away. He wanted just to make sure. If he wished to get out of this hut, would he be able to get out or not? And then he discovered it's very easy to get out and escape. That's why he kept there, and he felt very calm. And that the window had no fastenings. What is the good of a man, he said to himself at last, if he doesn't understand man's talk? Now I'm as silly and dumb as a man would be with us in the jungle. I mean by dumb, when you can't speak. We usually say deaf and dumb. Deaf can't hear and dumb can't speak. I must speak their talk. It was not for fun that he had learned to imitate the growls and grunts of the jungle animals, I mean their voices. So as soon as Miswa pronounced a word, Mowgli would imitate it almost perfectly. And before dark, he had learned the names of many things in the hut. He was so intelligent. There was difficulty at bedtime because Mowgli couldn't sleep under anything that looked like a panther trap as that hut. I mean by a panther, it's a wild black cat, you can say big one, a fierce one, and he didn't like to be in the hut because he began to feel himself as an animal which was trapped. So he climbed through the window and found some long clean grass at the edge of the field to sleep on. He did this every night, despite Miswa's objections. Of course, his mother didn't like this. Give him his will, said Miswa's husband. He has never slept on a bed before. If he is indeed sent in the place of our son, he will not run away. Be sure that if this boy is our son, don't worry, he wouldn't run away. Yes, it's a very wonderful story. I like you to read it all to amuse, to enjoy yourself. Now, let's look at the slides. Let's revise the most important words concerning this module. Slide 2. I'm going to just, I'd like you to underline with me some meanings. Adapt, it's verb, to change. Something to suit different conditions or uses. Approach, to come near or nearer to something or someone in space, time, quality, or amount. Bite, it could be verb and noun. Here it's noun. When you bite something, of course, using your teeth. Block, to prevent movement through something or to prevent something from happening or succeeding. Branch, a part of something larger, like branch of a tree. Cub, here it's a young lion or wolf, young animal. Dumb, not dumb, it's dumb, permanently or temporarily unable to speak. Frown, to bring your eyebrows together so that there are lines on your face above your eyes to show that you are annoyed or worried. Get away, I mean to leave or escape from a person or place, often when it's difficult to do this. Slide 3. Graze, be careful, it's not gaze, because gaze means to look carefully, to stare, but it's here graze. Pay attention to the spelling, please. To eat small portions of food throughout the day. Herd, it's a large group of animals of the same type that live and feed together. Hut, small, simple building, usually consisting of one room. Imitate, to behave in a similar way to someone or something else, or to copy the speech or behavior of someone or something. Alarm, warning of danger, typically a loud noise or flashing light. Indeed, really, or certainly, often used to emphasize something. Inspect, to look at something or someone carefully in order to discover information. Slide 4. Insult, to say or do something or for someone that is rude or offensive. Intend, to have as a plan or purpose. Manners, polite ways of treating others. Mark, a small area on the surface of something which is damaged, dirty, or different in some way. Nod, it's very important, to move your head down and then up, sometimes several times, especially to show agreement, approval, or greeting, or to show something by doing this. Objection, when someone expresses or feels opposition or dislike of something or someone. Playful, funny. Pronounce, to say a word or a letter in a particular way. Remark, I mean to give a spoken statement of an opinion or thought. 5. Slide 5. Run away, to leave a place or person secretly and suddenly. Scar, a mark left on part of the body after an injury, such as a cut, has healed. Stare, to look for a long time with the eyes wide open. Set out of, I mean leave. Trap, a device or hole for catching animals or people and preventing their escape. Uneasy, if you are uneasy, you are slightly worried or uncomfortable. Unlike, different from. Will, it's W-I, don't forget, the mental power used to control and direct your thoughts and actions. Amount, become a particular amount. Next slide, we are going to talk here about phrasal verbs with the verb come. I mean by phrasal verbs, we have come as the verb, but if I added to this verb some prepositions, I would have some different meanings. Let's see. Come up with means to think of. Come round, to change your mind about something. Come up, to be mentioned. Come to amount to. Come down with, to get an illness. Come down, to become lower. Come out, to become available to the public. Come up against, to face. Come about, to happen. Come into, to inherit. Come to a conclusion, I mean reach the final part of something. Come over, to come to a place, move from one place to another, or move towards someone. Slide 7. We have a lot of similes here. It's very important to study them by heart. As free as a bird, I mean you are free. As quick as lightning. As quiet as a mouse. As good as gold. As white as snow. As easy as a pie. As light as a feather, very light I mean. As busy as a bee. As cunning as a fox, very, very intelligent, not in a kind way. As hard as a stone, as hungry as a wolf. Slide 8. We have some collocations here. We say scratch his head. I mean, when you don't know the answer and you are thinking about it, we say he scratched his head. Nod his head, to move your head up and down as a sign of agreement. Wave goodbye, to say goodbye to someone, moving your hand. Raise his eyebrows as a sign of surprise. Shake his head from left to right as a sign of dislike or disagreement. Shrug his shoulders, I mean to move your shoulders up and down. It means that you don't know. Snap his finger, to make a sound using your fingers to attract the attention of the others. Wink at someone, to make a quick movement using your eyes to make the others believe that you are making fun or joking. Thanks a lot for your great attention for today, and goodbye.